No one saw this coming. Not the fans, not the cast, not even those closest to the couple. What began as whispers in the background has now exploded into the loudest storm love and hip-hop has faced in years. At the center of it all are Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris, a couple once praised for loyalty, resilience, and a love that seemed unbreakable. Their relationship was built on sacrifice, endurance, and public devotion, and yet tonight that very bond is under fire, teetering on the edge of collapse. The internet is ablaze. Timelines are flooded, and every gossip blog, fan forum, and podcast is echoing with the same urgent question: how did this happen? The story is darker than anyone dared imagine. Allegations have surfaced that could not only ruin reputations but possibly destroy lives. Claims so shocking that even the most loyal supporters are struggling to defend them. And the person lighting this fuse is none other than Tasha. A name fans recognize, but never expected to carry this kind of weight. She has stepped forward, refusing to stay silent. And the truth she claims to have witnessed has already shaken the foundation of one of reality TV's most celebrated marriages. This is not just drama for entertainment, nor is it merely about ratings. This feels like a turning point, because if Tasha's words are true, then Yandy, the woman who held her family together through years of trials, might be in more danger than anyone realized. The stage is set, the silence is deafening, and the storm has only just begun. Tasha's words cut through the noise like a knife. She wasn't whispering, she wasn't hinting, she was declaring loud and clear that she had witnessed something no one else dared to say out loud. According to her, the image of a perfect couple shattered in an instant the night she claims Mendeecees lost control. With her voice trembling but determined, she recounted that moment when laughter turned to silence, and silence cracked under the sound of a slap that echoed across the room. Her allegation is not just that a hand was raised, but that it was followed by words more frightening than the act itself. Tasha insists she heard him say something that sent chills down her spine, a threat that transformed what could have been dismissed as a heated argument into something much darker. For Tasha, this was not about stirring drama or chasing headlines. This, she claimed, was about survival, about a warning sign that could no longer be ignored. She painted the scene with vivid detail. The way Yandy froze, the shock in her eyes, the uncomfortable shifting of others nearby who didn't know whether to intervene or look away. The atmosphere was thick, suffocating, as if everyone in that space knew they had just witnessed something dangerous, but were too stunned to process it. And yet, for Tasha, the memory was crystal clear. She emphasized again and again that she wasn't exaggerating, wasn't looking for clout. She wanted the world to know what really happened behind the cameras and beyond the polished storylines. Her decision to speak out sparked immediate debate. Was she being truthful, or was she weaponizing a rumor? Did she actually see the moment she described, or was it a mixture of assumption and interpretation? Regardless of the doubts, the conviction in her tone left many uneasy. There was a gravity to her voice, the kind that comes only from someone who believes every word they're saying. Tasha ended her account with a haunting warning. If it could happen once, it could happen again. And if no one stepped in, the next time might not end with just a slap. Her words left the audience shaken, not just because of the allegation itself, but because of what it implied about the future of a marriage everyone thought they understood. The moment Tasha's allegation hit the internet, chaos erupted. Social media platforms became battlegrounds, timelines flooded with disbelief, anger, and endless speculation. Hashtags shot to the top of trending lists within hours, with fans dissecting every clip, every interview, and every past moment between Yandy and Mendeecees for hidden clues. It was as if the entire fan base had suddenly transformed into investigators, replaying old footage to see if there were signs they had missed. For some, the reaction was immediate outrage. Loyal supporters of Yandy flooded her comment sections with love, encouragement, and pleas for her to leave if the allegations were true. Others, however, demanded evidence, warning against the danger of believing a single story without proof. The divide grew wider by the hour, and what started as one woman's testimony quickly spiraled into a cultural debate about trust, loyalty, and the darker side of relationships behind the cameras. Podcasters jumped on emergency live streams, gossip channels pushed out back-to-back uploads, and fan pages lit up with theories. Some accused Tasha of exaggerating for attention, while others insisted her body language and conviction proved she was telling the truth. One viral thread summed up the mood perfectly. If Tasha is lying, she'll go down as the biggest villain in reality TV. But if she's telling the truth, then Yandy needs protection immediately. The frenzy wasn't just about Yandy and Mendeecees anymore. It became a mirror reflecting the audience's own fears and experiences. Viewers shared personal stories of toxic relationships, echoing Tasha's warning that a slap is never just a slap. Every hour brought new commentary, new edits, and new reactions, until the story was impossible to escape. By the end of the day, it was clear the internet had taken sides, and no matter where the truth lay, the damage had already been done. The couple's carefully built public image was now fractured, and the world was watching closely to see what would happen next. While the internet was roaring with debates and speculation, Yandy herself remained silent. Not a single tweet, not a single post, not even a cryptic story on Instagram. For someone who had always been outspoken, her sudden quietness spoke louder than words. Fans waited, refreshing their feeds every hour, desperate to hear her side of the story. But nothing came, and that silence only fueled the fire, leaving people to wonder, was it denial? Was it strategy? Or was it fear? To understand why this hit so hard, people began to revisit Yandy and Mendeecees' history. Their relationship was never just about romance. It was about endurance. From the very beginning, Yandy was painted as the loyal partner who stood tall through storms most people would have walked away from. When Mendeecees faced legal troubles and served years behind bars, Yandy didn't just visit, she fought for him. She raised their children, she managed the household, and she wore her devotion like armor. Every time critics doubted her, she answered with loyalty. Every time the world said, "Leave," she stayed. For fans, Yandy became more than a reality star. She was a symbol of commitment, of standing by your partner no matter how heavy the burden. That history made these new allegations even harder to process. Could the same man she defended with unwavering faith really be the one behind the slap and threats Tasha described? Was the fairy tale loyalty hiding a much darker reality? Commentators replayed clips of Yandy's past interviews where she spoke about love, forgiveness, and second chances. Suddenly, those words carried a haunting weight. Supporters feared that her strength had been taken advantage of, that her silence now was less about dignity and more about survival. Detractors, on the other hand, speculated that her quietness was strategic, that maybe she was preparing a statement or even negotiating how the storyline would play out on camera. But no matter the reason, the absence of her voice became the loudest element in the conversation. People weren't just waiting for gossip anymore. They were waiting for confirmation, for closure, for truth. And in that silence, the weight of years of loyalty, sacrifice, and devotion hung heavy, reminding everyone that behind the glitz of reality TV, very real lives were being tested. Tasha did not stop at making the allegation once. She doubled down, repeating her claim with a conviction that made it impossible to ignore. According to her, the sound of the slap was sharp, startling, and unforgettable. She described it in such detail that listeners could almost hear the echo themselves. In her words, the room froze in that instant, and every single person nearby was forced to confront what had just taken place. She went further, recalling the expressions on people's faces. Some looked away, some whispered, and others sat in stunned silence as if they couldn't believe their own eyes. Tasha said she could still remember Yandy's reaction. Her eyes wide, her body stiff, caught between shock and fear. The way she described it, there was no mistaking what had happened. No way to soften or twist it into something else. Again and again. Tasha insisted this wasn't about creating a scene or feeding drama for cameras. "This is not about a storyline," she said firmly. "This is about safety." That statement alone carried a chilling weight. It wasn't just about a single moment of violence. It was about what that moment represented. For Tasha, it was a warning sign, a glimpse into a dangerous pattern that could escalate if left unchecked. Her repeated warnings became harder to dismiss. Fans who had initially brushed her off as exaggerating began to reconsider. Even skeptics admitted that her consistency was striking. She never wavered, never backtracked, never softened the edges of her story. Each retelling was just as vivid, just as haunting. And in a world where reality TV often blurs the line between fact and fiction, that unwavering detail gave her story a disturbing credibility. Whether people believed her or not, Tasha had forced the conversation into a space where it could no longer be ignored. As Tasha's story spread, a new divide began to take shape. On one side were the believers, those who felt every word rang true, who argued that no one would risk their reputation by inventing something this serious. They pointed to Tasha's unwavering consistency, her emotional tone, and the uncomfortable silence from Yandy herself as proof that the allegation carried weight. To them, this wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a cry for help that demanded attention. On the other side were the skeptics, just as vocal and just as determined. They argued that love and hip-hop thrived on chaos, that shocking moments kept the cameras rolling and the ratings high. To them, Tasha's story was just another exaggerated plot twist designed to keep viewers hooked. They dissected her words, questioned her motives, and wondered why. If the event was so clear, no other eyewitnesses had stepped forward. Social media became the courtroom, and fans played the roles of judge and jury. Memes, reaction videos, and long threads debating the credibility of Tasha's account circulated nonstop. Some fans highlighted inconsistencies in her past statements on other issues, while others noted that every time she repeated her claim, her details stayed sharp and unchanged. This tug-of-war over truth versus performance left the entire situation suspended in uncertainty. Believers warned against dismissing a possible sign of abuse, while skeptics cautioned against ruining someone's reputation without undeniable proof. And caught in the middle was Yandy, silent, unresponsive, and now the focal point of a storm that refused to pass. With no clear answers from Yandy or Mendeecees, the vacuum was quickly filled by speculation. Fans, bloggers, and even insiders began proposing their own theories about what could have pushed the couple to such a breaking point. For some, the first explanation was money. The weight of finances, business ventures, and public image often created cracks in celebrity relationships. And whispers suggested that financial stress had been simmering beneath the surface for months. Others pointed to the age-old issue of infidelity. In a world where trust is constantly tested under the spotlight, even the smallest rumor of cheating can snowball into chaos. Certain gossip outlets claimed there had been arguments about loyalty, late-night absences, and messages that didn't add up. Though none of these claims were confirmed, The idea alone fueled heated debates about whether betrayal could have sparked the explosive tension Tasha described. Still others focused on the pressure of fame itself. Living under constant scrutiny, with cameras capturing every move, can distort even the strongest of bonds. Couples who might have worked through private struggles in silence suddenly found their conflicts amplified, dissected, and judged by millions. For Yandy and Mendeecees, already a brand as much as a couple, that pressure may have been unbearable. Each theory carried its own logic, yet none provided certainty. What they did reveal, however, was how invested people had become in unraveling the mystery. Money, infidelity, and fame, any one of them could strain a marriage. But together, they painted a picture of a relationship under siege, one that may have finally reached its breaking point. As the allegations spread and the public conversation grew louder, those closest to Yandy and Mendeecees could no longer stay silent. Friends, relatives, and longtime associates began to step in, each offering advice that revealed just how deeply divided the inner circle had become. For some, the message was simple and urgent. Yandy needed to leave. They argued that no matter how complicated love and loyalty might be, no one should stay in a situation where safety was at risk. Their concern wasn't about image, reputation, or television. It was about protecting her well-being and ensuring that her children didn't grow up in the shadow of violence. Others urged caution, suggesting that she take a step back but not make any rash decisions. They reminded her of the years she had invested, the sacrifices she had made, and the bond she had defended even during the darkest chapters of their story. To them, walking away without attempting counseling or some form of resolution would mean abandoning everything they had built together. These voices weren't dismissing the seriousness of the allegations, but they believed reconciliation could still be possible if both parties committed to change. Yandy herself was said to be torn, caught between two extremes. On one hand was her instinct to protect her family, to shield her children, and to avoid repeating cycles of pain. On the other hand was her deep history with Mendeecees, a man she had once vowed to stand by through trials that would have broken most couples. Friends described her as quiet, reflective, and visibly exhausted, as though the weight of everyone's expectations was pressing down on her shoulders. Even extended family members were rumored to be involved, some taking Yandy's side with fierce loyalty, others defending Mendeecees and insisting that Tasha's account had been twisted. This tug-of-war within the personal circle mirrored the larger debate playing out online, leaving Yandy at the center of a storm where every decision felt like it would come with consequences. Whether she chose to stay, seek counseling, or walk away, one thing was clear. The people around her knew the situation had reached a point where ignoring it was no longer an option. Just when people thought the story couldn't get any messier, new rumors began to surface. Rumors that suggested the SLAP was only the beginning. According to whispers spreading through fan pages and gossip blogs, there had been other explosive confrontations behind the scenes. One account claimed a heated argument ended with glass shattering against the wall. Another suggested that production crews were forced to step in to prevent the situation from spiraling further. Though none of these claims were officially confirmed, the consistency in the details across multiple sources left many viewers unsettled. These rumors sparked a new wave of speculation. If the cameras had caught even a fraction of what was being described, why hadn't the footage been released? That question immediately shifted attention to the producers of Love and Hip Hop. Fans accused them of protecting the show's image, hiding the ugliest truths to avoid legal backlash or reputational damage. After all, an on-camera scandal of this scale could raise serious questions about the safety of the cast and crew. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed the producers were in panic mode. On one hand, Controversy drove ratings, and this scandal was generating more attention than any storyline in recent memory. On the other hand, the potential liability was enormous. If physical violence had truly taken place during filming, the network risked lawsuits, public outrage, and even calls for the show to be canceled. For producers, the challenge became walking the razor's edge, feeding the drama enough to keep the audience hooked while quietly controlling the narrative to avoid complete chaos. Meanwhile, cast members were allegedly forced to take sides. Some were rumored to distance themselves from Mendeecees, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Others defended him, dismissing the claims as exaggerated drama. The result was a fractured cast dynamic, with tensions spilling into confessionals and threatening to overshadow other storylines completely. What made this escalation even more dangerous was the silence from the people at the center of it all. With Yandy and Mendeecees refusing to make clear statements, rumors filled the gap, and each new leak seemed more intense than the last. For viewers, the lack of clarity made the story addictive. Every whisper, every supposed inside scoop, felt like another piece of a puzzle that no one could fully solve. And for the producers, the storm was both a blessing and a curse, unstoppable, uncontrollable, and potentially explosive. As the scandal refused to fade, public pressure grew louder with every passing day. Social media platforms were consumed by debates, hashtags, and fiery threads demanding answers. Fans who once cheered for Yandy and Mendeecees as a power couple were now pleading for Yandy's safety. Messages like "protect Yandy at all costs" and "no storyline is worth her life" spread rapidly, forcing the situation into the spotlight in ways the couple could no longer ignore. But the silence only made things worse. Every day without a response fueled more suspicion, more fear, and more anger. For many, it wasn't just about gossip anymore. It was about accountability. If Mendeecees was truly guilty, fans wanted justice. And if Yandy was in danger, they wanted her to be protected before something irreversible happened. The weight of expectation began pressing on producers, networks, and even fellow cast members who felt trapped between loyalty and responsibility. Then came the whispers of legal action. Insiders hinted that Yandy's close friends were urging her to file for protective measures, while others speculated that lawyers were already circling, gathering evidence in case the situation escalated further. Rumors of restraining orders, custody battles, and even potential lawsuits added a chilling new layer to the drama. The tension reached beyond television. Entertainment outlets, gossip blogs, and even mainstream media began covering the story as more than just reality TV drama. It was now framed as a conversation about domestic violence, the responsibility of networks, and the dangers of silence in the face of abuse. For fans, it became clear this wasn't just another plotline. It was real life, raw and frightening, with stakes far higher than ratings. The scandal soon grew beyond the walls of reality television and spilled into the broader cultural conversation. What had started as whispers of a marital dispute quickly became a discussion about power, loyalty, and the dangers of silence in relationships. Commentators pointed out how Yandy's image as a devoted wife, standing by Mendeecees through his legal struggles and personal battles, was now being weaponized against her. Some argued that her loyalty had trapped her, creating a narrative where leaving seemed like weakness instead of strength. Others countered that her resilience was the only reason the family had survived as long as it had. This divide mirrored the fan base itself. On one side, supporters rallied around Yandy with messages of protection and encouragement, urging her to prioritize safety above all else. They believed Tasha's words, seeing them as a brave attempt to save her friend. On the other side, skeptics dismissed the claims, labeling them exaggerated drama designed for views, clicks, and attention. For them, the silence from both Yandy and Mendeecees was proof that the situation was being blown out of proportion. Podcasts, blogs, and discussion panels fanned the flames, each analyzing every detail of the story. Some even revisited old episodes, dissecting body language and tone, trying to uncover hidden truths that had been missed the first time around. Every glance, every awkward silence, became evidence in a case that existed more in the public imagination than in courtrooms. At its core, the scandal reflected a bigger societal struggle: how to handle accusations of violence when the truth is murky, the silence deafening, and the consequences enormous. It showed how quickly fandom can turn into activism, and how reality TV, once dismissed as entertainment, can suddenly become a mirror of very real fears, choices, and dangers. As the dust seemed ready to settle, a new wave of rumors shook everything once again. Insiders whispered about a confrontation that might have happened off-camera, something so intense that producers allegedly stepped in to prevent it from spiraling further. Whether this was fact or just another layer of speculation, no one could confirm. But the uncertainty itself was enough to reignite the firestorm, leaving fans with even more questions than answers. The tension now feels like a cliffhanger out of a scripted drama, yet the stakes are terrifyingly real. Viewers find themselves glued not just because of entertainment, but because of the genuine fear that something dangerous could be happening behind closed doors. Every silence from Yandy adds weight. Every vague post from Mendeecees fuels suspicion, and every leaked comment from sources close to the family sends the internet into another frenzy. The audience is left asking, is this the beginning of the end, or just another chapter in a story that refuses to close? For Yandy, the choice appears more urgent than ever. Does she stay, hoping that counseling or intervention can repair what's broken? Does she take space, stepping away to protect herself and her children while leaving the door open for reconciliation? Or does she walk away completely, choosing survival and safety over history and loyalty? These questions don't just haunt her, they haunt the millions watching, many of whom project their own experiences of love, heartbreak, and survival onto her struggle. And now, the camera turns to you, the viewer. What do you believe Yandy should do? Should she give Mendeecees one last chance, trusting that love can conquer even the darkest storms? Should she demand counseling and accountability before risking another moment? Or is the only answer to leave, proving that strength sometimes means walking away? Whatever your opinion, one thing is undeniable. This story is far from finished. The silence is deafening, the rumors louder than ever, and the truth still hidden in shadows. But sooner or later, the next chapter will unfold, and when it does, it could change everything we think we know. Until then, the question remains, whose side are you on? And what path do you believe Yandy should take?